Where do I begin? Crossroads? Yeah, what a mall.
It was more than a mall. It was more than just, some shopping center. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it was like a home away from home. Everyone was always there. Your friends, your family. I made some of my best buds working at Sam Goody. Looking back, I just kind of miss it,
They used to have so much in arcade, video and record stores, any clothing store you could want. In the middle, there was this huge carousel. It was breathtaking.
You really just had to see it for yourself. It was magical. When you see it today, there's nothing.
Crossroads was a special mall to me. It always was. It connected me to an audience and to a community I never knew existed. And it helped me find something that I cared about. When my life was so hard, dead malls just gave me purpose. This is one of the only malls I've always ever come back to, and it's just like every time I was here, there was something else gone. The Buckle, Kay, Riddles, Justice, the list goes on. It had so much life, with those beautiful sparkling Christmas lights and the drop Christmas decorations and all of the lights, and now there's just nothing. As someone who's ventured all over the US, I have seen hundreds of malls, dead, alive, and even abandoned. I always say, wow, this is an incredible mall. This is my favorite. But Crossroads Mall, one that hits so close to home, one where I've made so many memories, and I've literally started my channel for, this is my favorite mall. It's one I hold so dear to my heart, and it's like over the years I've been coming here over and over and over, and every time I come there's just more and more gone. Even in late 2019 and early 2020, there was this warm, inviting feeling here. I get all teary and nostalgic thinking back to it because I knew when I walked in those doors for the first time holding my crappy camera in 2019 and Wham's Last Christmas was playing over the radio, and it was just filled with all these beautiful Christmas lights and stars. I just knew that this was the one. And even almost 3 years and hundreds of malls later, this is still the one. So I figured I would do it justice. One last time, I would tell you the story of Crossroads, and one last time, I would take you and we would dive in and see where it's going for one of the most beautiful malls on its final holidays. Our story begins spliced around in June of 2022. While I have many previous dates recorded of stores closing, I'll show those briefly throughout this video, as I wouldn't want an hour of me walking around and around the same thing. Although, yes, we do that quite a bit. Strap in, because I really wanted to discover every inch of this mall. In June, I noticed the neons for the first time. Dillard's old entrance had been left abandoned for a few years by this point, and something made management decide, oh what the heck, and they turned on those 90s beauties. While just white squares around a bright ceiling light, it was still encapsulated to a time when neons were prevalent just about anywhere, especially in this small nook of the mall in a spot where no one would really notice them. Let's begin the story of Crossroads Mall in Waterloo, Iowa. Crossroads Mall's story begins almost 60 years ago in the booming town of Waterloo, Iowa. In the late 60s, Waterloo was a well-known Iowan manufacturing town. While the segregated years and race riots happened to be a large focal point of the city's history at the time, the late 60s would also prove to be a time of another event. Crossroads Centers Inc., a Minnesotan mall development company, was looking to build 3 sister malls in the states of Iowa and Minnesota, all of the same name. One to be built in St. Cloud, one in Fort Dodge as an open-air mall, and the final in Waterloo, with this third to be built as Iowa's first 2-story mall. The site by the company would be picked out in the booming suburban part of the south side of town, right at the crossroads of San Bernardino and LaPorte. Residents all over the city and surrounding area were extremely excited for this new mall. It would prove to be a turning point in the city's retail scene, as this booming south side would grow to become the core retail quarter that still feeds the city today. And it would all be started and anchored by the new mall. Sears and JCPenney would officially sign on as the mall's 2 anchors, with a Black's department store and Osco Drug as the mall's 2 junior anchors. As preliminary plans were submitted and the ground was broken in 1967, hype would grow, and excitement would build along with it, for the massive new mall, which would soon become a pillar of the community. Throughout all of the years I've been to this mall, I've always, and always will, wonder what this empty space was down here. I mean, what all of these walls were. This creepy liminal space in particular, which used to feature the wild plants exhibit, actually became a pretty well-known liminal space image I took, which circulated around for a short time on Reddit. Now, sadly, the lights are usually left off, and the wild plants were transported to another mall where schools of fascinated 3rd graders could watch them in their natural habitat while drinking juice boxes. So sad. Sears would be the first to open on March 24th of 1969 as a true big box concept. The late 60s was the time when Sears was catching on to the mall anchor trend and really began experimenting with how big they could go. And what the residents of Waterloo got was a truly massive store. 2 floors spread out across over 150,000 square feet of space. This store would anchor the mall, while also featuring a full-line auto center and a restaurant. Interestingly, I can't imagine going to a Walmart today and having the option of in-store fine dining. Regardless, while the red ribbons were cut and this new store opened, the rest of the mall was nearing completion, as residents could look over the sea of brand new parking spaces and see construction barriers where the new mall would be. And by later that year, that beautiful fantasy would finally come to fruition. One of my favorite things about Crossroads is the unique theming. In the 1997 remodel, which we'll get to, the escalators and floors were fitted with the new tile, which features these massive compasses, really making you feel like you're at a crossroads, and in this upcoming shot here you'll get a really good view of them. The neons and palm pillars are just the 90s talking, but everything else just feels so unique. The layout of the mall, especially, which, let's get to that. Crossroads Mall would fully open for business in late 1969. The exact date of the opening, however, remains unknown. JCPenney would open along with the mall, as well as Black's, Osco Drug, and Bishop's Buffet, along with 50 other businesses. Some including Zales, Kinney Shoes, B. Dalton, Regis, Musicland, Claire's, and Spencer's, among many, many others. The mall was laid out in a beautiful and very unique two-story design. While the massive two anchors on either end took up enormous amounts of space, the actual mall itself wasn't too large. Being comprised of two connected courts with the stores flanking all the way around on either level, wooden staircases and planters flanked these courts, and they would often be filled with shows and other traveling features through the years. The people of Waterloo and the surrounding area would love their mall, as it would prove to be filled with shoppers elbow to elbow each day. Coincidentally, the late 60s was not just the tentative opening for Crossroads, but for another mall just 6 miles away. College Square Mall opened that same year in the other booming suburb of Cedar Falls, home to the University of Northern Iowa, was a much smaller one-story mall. However, it featured many of the same tenants as Crossroads. These two malls over their lifetimes would slowly fight more and more for retail dominance as the Metro's top mall, even though today both are very empty. Regardless, Crossroads' early years would see it thrive and flourish, and not much would change. Around the mall, however, construction was springing up. LaPorte Street, originally shooting off as a highway southeast of the mall, would be dead-ended, with the construction of Interstate 380 right along the mall, which boosted traffic. Literally. Highway 20's 4-lane expansion would come later, bringing the entire area its first stack interchange, in turn bringing more traffic to the mall and to the booming area. In 1978, Black's would be sold to Donaldson's after an early departure by the fading company. It was the 80s that would see the mall's first real changes. As we end our first visit, or should I say for me, like 20th, we pass by this old Western-styled restaurant. I want to say Diamond Dave's? God, I would love to see that neon cactus turned on. I wonder when this closed. Let me know below. In the next visit, summer was coming to a close. I was just coming off my 1 month with the Michigan expedition and still compiling the footage. On a ragtag trip to the area to scope out my future place of living, me and some friends made the trip to Crossroads, and this was probably one of my favorite visits. As this time, while my friends went shopping, I really took my time and explored as much of the mall as I could. And I found some pretty neat secrets, ones I didn't even know existed. And the old Dillard's wing on this occasion had its lights off, with the skylight being the only form of illumination. A ghostly sight, so stay tuned. Also, the hip-hop just felt fitting as my friends play Jay-Z, and as we get ever so close to the 90s in our history textbook, like I said, it just felt fitting. last time we were here, Mecca walked to that finish line. Funniest thing ever. I'm like, In 1987, the mall was modernizing, and in turn, filling itself with your more traditional 80s mall stores. Sam Goody, KB Toys, and Walden Books, Foot Locker, and such. And in 1987, an even bigger change. Donaldson's would become Carson Pierce Scott. This external junior anchor was never connected to the mall, and it was a strange fit, as Carson Pierce Scott, an Illinois brand, usually didn't stray too far into the unknown lands of Iowa. Iowa was primarily more of a Yonkers territory, so it was a strange addition to the mall's lineup. Carson's wouldn't last long, however, as just 2 years later, in late September of 1989, their other brand, Herberger's, was looking to tap into the more permanent mall market. And with this would come a pretty hefty change. JCPenney, a mall anchor staple with its 2-level store, would sell off their upper level to Herberger's, and the new store would open in 1989. With this Western anchor now subdivided, you had something you don't often see in malls, as the two spaces were completely separate national anchors, but just on top of each other. JCPenney's old escalator would be taken out in the process. Sears across the mall would catch on to this subdivision trend by the early 90s, and in 1991 would cut out a portion of their upper level space for a brand new 51,000 square foot Farmer Pharmacy. Now with 2 pharmacies, CVS, previously Osco Drug, and Farmore, CVS would quickly leave the mall for a freestanding location a few years later. And this massive lower level space, which even had its own glass entry area, would never be filled again. The 90s would begin to see a scary trend catch on, as more and more big box retail opened up all around the mall, Target, Best Buy, Barnes & Nobles and such. It became clear the old mall just wasn't on the same level. Coupling with the new age of the internet and a shifting demographic of shopping in the metro, the old Crossroads needed to do something big. Really big. Really, really, really big. And that it did. Saving its future in the late 90s, the biggest change would open to the public. Before we hop into the wild 3 years that was 1997 to 2000, I really wanted to take a seat in one of these massage chairs. Sadly, none of them work anymore, but I was able to get a break at one of my favorite shots in the entire series. The desolate West Court looking down into an infinite spiraling escalator, taking no one nowhere. In 1997, the mall would undergo a $4 million renovation, making it look like the suave 90s paradise you see today. Along with the new palm pillars, escalators, and elevator, which were all much needed additions, Dillard's would build a brand new $20 million two-story department store in a new wing on the south side of the mall, featuring modern white neons and a beautiful curved staircase homaging the original spiral staircases of the mall's past. Dillard's was a breath of fresh air, bringing the mall up to a grand total of 4 anchors. Speaking of anchors, Herberger's would also be completely renovated, becoming Yonkers. Every single storefront in the mall would receive a huge facelift. Sam Goody, PacSun, Christopher & Banks, The Buckle, Victoria's Secret, Riddles, Bath & Body Works, actually maybe not all of them, but many, many more. Along with the new look, the mall also received a strange feature that only lasted a few years. A food court in the old Sears court. Not just any food court though. No, this wasn't built in stores. Risers, similar to the ones you would see at a children's choir concert, were installed on the floor, and makeshift food vendors could come in and fill the spaces. This is honestly one of the mall's vaguest and strangest tidbits of history, so if any of you want to correct me or give me some information, please feel free to do so. By the early 2000s, this strange idea would be taken out instead, and the space would just be filled with a carousel. If this mall ever does close, I would love to have one of those fake palm plants up there. Can you imagine how sweet of a living room foliage piece that would make? I mean, sure, it's so little unorthodox to have a 5-foot wide fake tropical plant in your living room, but on the plus side, you're saving a bit of the mall, and it would make a pretty good conversation piece, right? The main entrance area, kind of similar to the old Dillard's wing, is a place I know little about. All I know is that Gino's is not closed and is actually some of the best mall pizza you can find this side of the Mississippi, and that this Baby Riddles is probably one of the cutest little jewelry stores I've ever seen. I wonder why they changed. This location is just precious. In 2000, Farmore, later renamed Half Price, would become the Houston-based Gorman's clothing store. The rest of the 2000s would see little change in the mall. Sam Goody shortly became Phi, and the enormous Tilt Arcade near Sears would install a pirate-themed glow golf section. In photographs from the time, specifically those found on Label Scar's website, which has sadly since shut down, taken in 2007, these photos show a vibrant mall, largely still basking in the success of the 1997 remodel. More modern stores like Mastercuts, Christopher & Banks, Victoria's Secret, Zales, and Kay all populate the halls, while sprinkled in with a fresh hint of the 90s neon zazz, with stores like The Buckle, Maurice's, and Sam Goody. In the Dillard's corridor, you had the walled-off spaces, which we still don't know what was once there. And then there were the more interesting mall tenants. The Tilt Arcade, a Harley-Davidson store? What do? Drive your motorcycle out through the doors? And a massive Scheels right next door. Very rare sight to see a Scheels in a mall as an inline tenant nowadays. As the times would change, so would the mall. Sam Goody would soon leave, The Buckle, Maurice's, and Spencer's would all be modernized, and the carousel would sadly be taken out. Everything at the mall was fine though, through all these changes, and while College Square, the neighboring competition, diminished in popularity, Crossroads was losing steam itself, but still floating. It wasn't until 2012 when dew hit the fan, and badly. As much as I wanted to go down towards the old Osco wing, which is now gated off, when I saw those army recruiters, I literally just turned around. Yeah, because you know how they are. They're on you about enlisting like flies on shit, so we'll come back later. I just had this bad feeling because I remember in my Southern Hills Mall video way back in season 1, a recruiter used his superior manipulative skills and somehow got my dumb 16-year-old self to almost join the army. Thank God my mom last second bailed me out and I never looked back. I don't even think the recruiters are even at Southern Hills anymore. Thank God. Ugh. Before we hop into the downfall of Crossroads, let's take it back to 1970, when Waterloo was really pushing itself as one of the greatest small cities in Iowa. I always love seeing these little commercials for cities. Makes me so nostalgic for a time I never lived. Stay tuned, and you might even see 70s Crossroads make a very small appearance. Catch you in a bit. Also right here, coming up, one of the best discoveries I've ever made. I can't believe I didn't notice it sooner, and you'll know what it is because I literally pan over it for like the next 2 minutes. you all enjoyed Waterloo's amazing promotional ad. They just don't do them like that anymore. Anyways, as we continue through time, we make our next stop, and this was in October. While the leaves were changing through a spectrum of colors, I decided I would stop in while passing through the area. This time without my friends, I really dove into the world of before and after. Thanks to pictures provided by Label Scar and Nathan Bush, we were able to compare what it was like before the downfall. Speaking of the downfall, let's get to that. By 2012, the mall was just fading in popularity, and stores were slowly leaving. Old Navy, a tenant formerly occupying the Old Blacks turned Carson Pierce Scott, had closed, and soon after, owners since the beginning, GGA and Crossroads Center LP, later renamed Jones Lang LaSalle, would default on their loans. This was a pretty big story at the time, as the company owed nearly $45 million to US Bank. Advisors would soon discover that the mall wasn't even worth half of that, being valued at just $19 million. E3 Realty advisors would pretty much rip the mall from the hands of its lifetime owners and creators, putting the mall in receivership, and manage it until they could find a quote-unquote suitable owner. And unfortunately, one would come. Suitable isn't really the proper word I'd give them though, but before that, in 2015, the biggest loss in the mall's life up to this point would begin a domino effect that would send the mall spiraling. JCPenney recognized their Crossroads anchor as a poor and underperforming location, and with 38 others would close their store on January 8, 2015. The loss of JCPenney sent this sort of ripple through the mall, a ripple that would break thin ice. You see, Crossroads' client demographic was based on its enormous 1960s big box stores. Sears, JCP, Dillard's, and Yonkers took up huge amounts of the mall's floor space and were big draws for the mall. Without them, inline tenants suffered immensely and would leave. That ice would break, and stores like Victoria's Secret, Hallmark, and Children's Place would all fall through, closing in rapid succession. In 2016, furniture store At Home would take up the space, but it wasn't the same, and they would soon close their mall entrance. Just a year later, in January of 2017, Namdar would buy the mall from E3. Yes, the beginning of the end. What followed was one of the fastest mall downfalls ever recorded, a depressing journey as one of the top malls in Iowa to almost nothing. It's about to get depressing, because, well, as much as I hate to say it, time's arrow marches forward. As much as you want to, you can't stand still, because life moves on around you. And in the case of Crossroads, it only gets worse. The year was 2018, and just days after the New Year's celebrations had commenced, it became apparent that this would be one of the mall's darkest years yet. As on January 4th, 2018, in the heat of their complete company-wide liquidation, Sears would announce closure of their Crossroads anchor, ending their almost 50-year run at the mall. And in April, the gates would be shuttered for the final time with the lights going dark, leaving the mall without either of its original two anchors. Just days after Sears' closure, on April 18th, Yonkers' parent company, the Bon-Ton, also in the heat of liquidation, would announce that Yonkers would be leaving the mall and would do so by August of that same year. After the devastation that was 2018, the mall would quickly lose more and more tenants. By late 2019, when I made my first visit, it was clear that the mall was dying. I mean, without either of its two main sides anchors, And with those buildings just empty, the mall was a shell. And it was clear that management in Namdar gave zero poos about the mall as tenants continued to leave. The Buckle, K, Riddles, all gone. Walking through the mall was like exploring a ghost town. Everything had a label scar and a beautiful past, but nothing had meaning or life. 2020 would be the next year of loss for the mall. Stuffums has surprisingly been here for a long time. Years, I mean. I've been here so many times to the mall, and I've never seen anyone shopping in here, or working. Seriously, when you walk in here, there's a little tone that sounds, and I'm pretty sure that it just wakes up the sleeping employee behind the curtains. And to think that this was once the largest inline retailer? Oh my god. In the long list of things I love about this mall, another is the fact that they never changed some of these old storefronts from opening. I mean, Osco right here, which just has this big gray wall in front of it. I wonder what's through that back window. We'll find out soon. On May 11th, 2020, Gordman's operating as Sears' split tenant and final draw for the entire east side of the mall would announce closure. Just 8 days later, Dillard's, the mall's final connected anchor and only store in the 1997 edition, would also announce that they would be leaving. Both would be gone just months later, and what you had left was fleeting stagnation. It was like everyone just up and left and abandoned the mall. And like a ship without sails, it didn't get very far. Throughout the rest of 2020 and into 2021, some of the remaining tenants, Christopher Banks, Famous Footwear, Foot Locker, and CNY Sports, would leave, giving you just a memory of what was once one of Iowa's greatest malls. All around the mall, businesses boomed, and the avenues couldn't be more packed. But with each day, you just saw less and less and less in the parking lot. The old Dillard's throughout 2021 and into 2022 would rapidly decay, and through falling tarps you could see this with the water damage and how the store was just falling apart. The aging exterior of the mall also left much to be desired. Massive abandoned anchors of the past, along with the dark brick of the 60s clashing with the white of the 97 remodel, leaves you with a mall from the outside which just feels like a jumble of identities. As we round out our year of history, we take it to the modern times. Unfortunately, the management skimped out on the Christmas decorations this year. I wonder why. But there was some good news as a Christmas craft show was going on around my visit, and I got to see the old K with the lights on again. It would be pretty sweet to be a crafts vendor selling CDs in the old Sam Goody. Oh god, someone please do that next year. That would be amazing. As of December of 2022 and into the New Year's, there remains no plans for the mall. Redevelopment of the entire property has been rumored about the community, but nothing is set in stone. And so, the mall, ailing, not even putting effort into putting up Christmas decorations this year, continues to sit fading. In my eyes, some of these last tenants will leave this year. Boost, Claire's, Rue 21, and God, maybe even Bath & Body Works, which I thought I would never say. My holiday 2022 visit was the busiest I've ever seen the mall. I mean, at one point, I saw more than 10 people walking in the same area. Crazy. There is still hope for Crossroads, though. What it desperately needs to once again thrive is to lose its big box. The old Sears, Dillard's, and Yonkers just drag it down. If they could redevelop these old stores into restaurants and outdoor retail, or new big box, or anything like that, there could be hope for foot traffic. Also, they just need to figure out what to do with their old Dillard's wing, often a creepy dark cavern. It's a really big turnoff for people. Will Crossroads Mall ever come back? Or has its time passed, and all we're doing is waiting for those doors to close for the final time? Let me know what you think below. Coming up here soon, after a real quick elevator ride, I was walking out, and when I looked over at the old Sears doors, something in my gut just told me to try it. So I did, and what do you know? It opened right up. So I'll let our Christmas credits roll as we explore the old abandoned Sears. I sadly didn't get to make it too far though, as while I was turning on motion detector lights in the warehouse, I was spotted by the two most grumpy guys working in there who said I was banned from the mall. Oh well. Anyways, thank you all for joining me on this little one-off journey today. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as me, and I hope I was able to dig up some old memories for you all. Make sure you guys don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. And head over to the Patreon and support me, and I'll send you a monthly Dead Mall Polaroid taken and signed by me. Godspeed, Crossroads, you beautiful mall. Thank you for all the memories, and thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a very Merry Christmas. From the Northern family to you all, peace out, guys. See you later. This is so